I'm Callie with Ag Aviation Adventures, and this winter I completed my ground school for obtaining my private pilot certificate. Now there are a ton of options out there for ground school, and we're lucky enough to be in a time where we can do it online, and that's awesome. I ended up going with Pilot Institute, and I could not be more pleased with how the program was. I'm going to talk about what I loved about it and how I felt like they helped me to be successful in passing my FAA written exam. A little bit of background about me and my experience in aviation. I've worked on the ground of an aerial application business for 10 years. You may know that if you're familiar with our channel. But other than that, I didn't really know much about airplanes or how they worked, the techniques. I pretty much was starting at zero when I started this ground school. And honestly, it was really intimidating when I started. I felt like there was no way I was going to be able to learn the information that's in front of me right here. And it was a little nerve-wracking. I have flown with Tyson in a general aviation aircraft a few times, but that was pretty much the extent of it. And I definitely was nervous when I started this course. I ended up getting a 93% on my written exam, and I could not believe how Greg, the instructor of Pilot Institute, taught me how all of this stuff works and got me prepared for that exam. All right, so let's get into Pilot Institute and what it's all about. My favorite thing about this course, Tyson and I do a lot of traveling. My favorite thing is that I can take this course completely mobile and offline. So you download the Teachable app and then you have your program right here on your tablet or iPad. You can download as many chapters as you'd like. And so if we're driving somewhere or in the car or traveling, I have the courses right here. I can plug my headphones in and watch all of the courses. Now, when you go to take the practice exams, you have to be online for those. So that is the one thing I will mention with that. But as far as getting through the study materials, it's awesome to be able to do that offline. Another thing I will mention is that Greg provides notes for all of the chapters and parts. So what I would do is I would print off the notes, have those in front of me, I'd have my tablet, and I would also take notes. Now everyone learns a little bit differently, but I find that if I'm not taking notes and writing things down physically, I'm not really remembering them. So that's a key for me, is just taking notes, and then I would remember the study materials. Like I said, Greg is the instructor of Pilot Institute, and if I go through here a little bit, we can see his face. There he is. By the end of this, I honestly felt like I was really good friends with Greg. He's just very personable. He explains things in a way that is easy to understand. And another thing I love about him is that he tells stories in some scenarios. So when those stories are told, that's a good way to help you remember what he's actually talking about. There were a few times in the exam when I would think back to a Greg story, and it was awesome that he gives us those. Again, I just feel like he's friendly, he's personable, and honestly, sometimes he's pretty funny, which when you can laugh when you're doing this sort of thing, it's a huge bonus.
Where does Greg live?
Greg lives in Prescott, Arizona, and he will be sure to tell you that multiple times throughout the course. Again, like I said, you kind of feel like you know the guy by the end of it. Another thing that I love about how this course is organized and designed is that it's broken down and you have this percentage bar at the top here. Now, when you start and you're at percent like 5, it is daunting to think about. And when you scroll down, I literally was like, how am I ever going to get through this? But you get through it. It's awesome by the end of it. And when you pass that exam, it is all worth it. I like having goals. And so with that percentage bar, it's easy to set a goal. So you wake up in the morning, you see that you're at 15%. You can say, all right, today I'm going to be at 20% by the end of the day. It was awesome to have that kind of as a reach to grasp for. In the beginning of the course, Greg also talks about everything you're going to need to know to get your private pilot certificate. So literally, if you know nothing about getting your private pilot certificate, if you've read nothing online, kind of similar to me, you can walk into this course and you'll know what to expect from day one. Another point as to how this course is organized that I really like is that it's broken down into parts, and then within those parts there are chapters. So at the end of each chapter, Greg talks about typical FAA questions. And this was especially helpful for me with like the math questions, anything weight and balance, anything that kind of takes a little bit of a process to get through. He would go through those questions, show you exactly how to do the math and the question, and then after those FAA questions, we would have a practice quiz. So that's at the end of each chapter, you have a quiz talking about the pertinent information. Then at the end of each part, there are FAA practice quizzes again for that part. So they're a little bit longer, a little bit larger quizzes. I just felt like this was a really good way to get me prepared for that exam at the end, because I'm seeing these FAA questions throughout the entire course and getting familiar with them. Now, I want to mention something else I did. You can see some study materials here, and I'll talk a little bit about these, but this is the GLIME test prep book, and this was also super helpful to use in conjunction with this course. So what I did at the end of each part is I would find the subsequent test in this book. The parts are very similar. I would do the part exam in this book after I finished a part in the course. So again, that's just really getting me familiar with those FAA questions and helping me learn the knowledge that I need to know moving forward. This is not affiliated with the Pilot Institute course. It's a different program, and this book is not necessary to get, but I did feel like it was helpful to have this also to go through. And I kind of liked having that paper book. If I was in a bad service area and I couldn't pull up the quizzes on the iPad, I could do the tests in here just as practice. So I'm constantly learning those questions, and I found it really helpful, so that's something I would recommend. Just while we're on it, this is my binder of all the notes that I took throughout the course, and like I said, that was a great way to help me learn the information, was just taking notes, and I could make my own drawings, and that just really helps me learn the information. I also have these two books over here that were recommended by Greg. I haven't read them. I honestly haven't gone through them. I referenced them a couple times when there was something that I was confused by, but other than that, I haven't really gone through those. I want to read those before I start my actual lessons in the airplane, because I think those are great to help me get more advanced in the knowledge part of everything. If you're interested in any of these study materials, I'm going to have links for everything in the description below, so be sure to check that out. Also, you can see this little airplane here. We broke the gear off because it was getting a little mangled in my bag. But for me, I'm a visual learner. So I had this little airplane. I think it was $10 on Amazon. And it really helped me to learn some of the techniques and some of the knowledge. You can also see a straight edge and a calculator. Those are some basic things. And another thing that I know why Greg didn't talk about this at the beginning of the course. I know why he waited till the end, but this is the CX3 flight computer, and it's amazing. If you get it at the beginning of the course, I would honestly recommend just watching. I think Greg actually even has some YouTube videos online about how to use the CX3, but for the weight and balance alone, you are going to save so much time with this. And you can use this on your FAA exam. I think it's important to know how to do it by hand, but if you want to save time, learn how to do it by hand for 1 or 2 questions, and then use this for the rest, because it will save you so much time. Not only for weight and balance, but so many other things. This, I think, is $100, totally worth it, and I can see us using this in the future if we're going on cross countries and that sort of thing. Huge time saver, highly recommend. Again, I'll leave a link down below. I have a couple more things here. One is a plotter, which you will need. I recommend getting one. This is actually from back when Tyson did his training. It's a little old school. They're actually the same now, but it's a little scratched up, and you could get yourself a nice brand. At least 100 years old. Just kidding. We also have the trusty E6B. I'm not going to go into too many details, but if you want the upgraded version of this, you will get the CX3 flight computer. Again, awesome to know how to do this. Greg talks about it. Just another one of your tools in your toolkit for getting prepared. One thing I will mention when you're trying to figure out which ground school you want to go through is that some have really detailed animations on how to learn something. So let's say airspace, for example. They've got a really detailed visual structure, we'll say. And maybe Greg's was pretty good, but I didn't quite grasp it from that. So one thing I will say is that if there's a topic that Greg's talking about that he maybe didn't explain in a way that I understood, there are a ton of resources online. So I would go to YouTube and I'd simply just type in the topic, and I'd watch a couple videos and I'd find one that resonates with me more than how Greg was explaining it or showing it via the visual aids. So that's just one thing to note, is that there may be some courses that have those amazing visual aids, but maybe the instructor isn't as personable. So there's kind of a little bit of give and take. He still has great visual aids. He even made his own like 3D airport to show you some things, which is really cool. I guess my point is that there were maybe 3 or 4 times throughout the course that Greg was explaining something and his visual aids just weren't reaching me. And so I would go to YouTube and I'd find some that were. I think overall, this is an amazing course. I really like Greg as an instructor. He is extremely experienced in the industry, and he does a great job of just being a personable instructor that you feel like you're sitting in a class with him and getting to know him. Also, I don't think Greg sleeps at all because he's so busy, but if you have any questions, you can reach out on the end of the chapter or the parts and you can make a comment and he'll reply to that. So if you're unclear on something, you can always reach out to Greg and he'll get back to you pretty reasonably. Speaking of that, so at the end of this, you have your practice FAA exams, and I think Pilot Institute wants you to pass 2 with an 80% or more, and you have to email them once you do that to receive the certificate for you to receive to go and take your FAA exam. You have to have that certificate when you go to take your FAA exam. I emailed them after I passed those few quizzes, and they got back to me within 15 minutes with that certificate. So then I was able to schedule my exam and nervously prepare for it. A little bit of a timeline for you. I passed those practice exams by Friday afternoon, emailed, got my certificate of completion, and I scheduled my exam for Monday. So I had 2.5 days of preparing to get ready for my exam on Monday. I was really nervous for the exam, but I felt prepared. I'm also going to publish a video on some tips and tricks to feel prepared and have a successful experience with your FAA exam. To recap, that was 2 days that I took to prepare for this exam. So I was already very prepared going into the FAA exam. I probably didn't even really need those 2 days, but I wanted to go over some topics that I maybe was a little unclear on. I wanted to go over some quizzes, and that's showing a lot about Pilot Institute that it only took me 2 days to get ready for that exam because I was already so prepared for it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this helps you decide moving forward on your ground school. I do not have enough good things to say about Pilot Institute, and we have a discount code for you. So check out the link below. That will get you a discount on this course. And if you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below and we'll get back to you. Also, be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Ag Aviation Adventures. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Callie with Ag Aviation Adventures. Well, we just showed up at the testing center for me to take my written exam, and I'm a little nervous.
She is shaking. We're kind of early. Roads were snowy, or we thought they were going to be, so we left early. Well, we're an hour and a half early here, but
they're going to let me go early.
Callie's going to go in and get this over with.
I don't like this feeling, but it will all be over soon.
At least she is extremely prepared.
Back in the car after my exam, and
how did you do, Cal?
I got a 93%.
Yeah, she freaking crushed it.
There were some questions in there that I did not feel like I was prepared for, and the questions that I was very prepared for, there were few of those. But there were some that I knew for certain, but in the end, I guess it turned out okay.
I mean, she says she wasn't prepared. I would say Greg overly prepared you for this. I mean, you missed 4 questions.
Out of 60.
That's awesome.
Probably could have done better, but I finished the course on Friday. Today is Monday. I did not leave the house all weekend, and I focused solely on studying, doing nothing else.
And it paid off.
It did pay off. It feels so good to have this behind me. Now for the fun part.